Hi there guys, Ken here, your thrifty apprentice, and in this video we are going to be swatching Marie's Masters watercolors. I've already done the unboxing and panning video. You can find that on the channel if you're interested. If I can remember, I'll link it in the video description below. And after the swatching, we'll jump into my preliminary demo with the paintings. I'm going to be painting a sweet pea flower. For right now, I'm just going to cut out and let some music play for the swatching, and I'll join you guys again once the painting demo starts. Okay, hopefully you all enjoyed the swatching, and now we are going to jump into the drawing. Now, this is the part of my video demos that you guys normally don't see. I normally do my preliminary sketch and my transferring before I turn on the camera, but this time I decided to let you guys in on the process. Now, the video did skip for the first two petals, but you will get a chance to see me draw out the rest of the sweet pea flower. Now, I'm using that Prina sketch pad that came with the Prina colored pencil set in order to just kind of sketch out my flower, get it the way I want it to be. Sweet pea flower is pretty easy to draw. It's like a flower with really big curvy petals, and there's normally like two of them. It's easy, and you can't really mess them up because they're just big floppy petals. That's what they are. So after I got the illustration sketched out the way I wanted to, I tore that out of the sketchbook, turned it over on the back, used my graphite pencil to scribble all over the back to make my own transfer paper. I didn't want to use a regular transfer paper because the lines would be really dark. I knew that this graphite transfer would be light doing it with the pencil, which is why I scribbled over the back, flipped it over, attached it to a block of watercolor paper. Now that is the Hemi 100% cotton watercolor paper block. I got it with, oh, what did I get that with? I'm trying to remember. I think it was that 36 count solid watercolor set that turned out to be crazy bad. I was so surprised because the Miya Hemi gouache is so good, but that 36 count watercolor set with a little comic book strip decoration on the front, yeah, not so much. But this paper came in that set, and I actually like this paper. It's 100% cotton rag, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I like it, especially for doing like these little small botanical drawings. So I just clipped it down onto that. It is 140 pounds, cold pressed, acid free as well. And then after it, I grab a pen and I'm just kind of tracing the illustration onto the watercolor paper. You saw that I kept lifting the paper up just to check to make sure that it was transferring, because I do know that this method, the graphite lines are kind of light. So now I'm going through my Creative Mark Super Black Fine Line pens, trying to figure out which size nibs I want to use to ink this in. This is an ink and wash, so I typically like to do my inking in the beginning in most cases, and then afterwards I'll go in and do the inking at the end just to redarken the lines. And sometimes I just do the inking at the end. Whatever the case, you see here, I used a 0.25 nib, just went in and outlined the sweet pea flower. And now here I am doing some hatching. This hatching is to indicate where the darker shadow and shaded areas of the flower would be, where the leaves meet at the stem, on any of the foliage and the petals, things like that. Just adding some character and definition. Now, actually, could have left it as an illustration, although this is not an illustration demo. I thought to myself after I finished, like, it's not too bad. It's just an illustration. Maybe I should leave it this way. But I was testing these watercolors, so I decided to press on and continue to make it an ink and wash. I really like these fine liners. They are really nice and they are really affordable. There are a lot of them in the pack. It's at Jerry's Autorama, but they're by Creative Mark. I've been using them for quite some time. I don't do reviews on products like these, and maybe I should, because I do use them in my artwork all the time. But this is definitely a recommendation. I don't have a Jerry's recommendation list, but if I did, these would be on them. So after I did my inking, I'm going to take a white vinyl eraser, and I am just erasing out any of those graphite lines that might have been left on the paper. I'm going to take a soft paint brush and just paint away those eraser crumbs, or brush away those eraser crumbs. Now let's jump in with some paint here. I'm using a number 6 round Golden Teclon synthetic creative expression brush by Creative Mark from Jerry's Autorama. They make really, really, really good economical and affordable brushes. Actually, I like a lot of the Creative Mark products other than that watercolor. We'll talk about that at some other point. So here I am using, what color is that? Sky blue, PB15 in the Marie Masters watercolor. I'm going to use that to lay down the base layer of the color for the petals of the flower. And it's pretty easy, straightforward, saturation, getting it all over everywhere. It doesn't matter. Just make sure you get an even wash on all of your petals. Now, most of the work has been done with the pen. You could just lay this light wash down on each of the petals and leave it at that if you decide to. Of course, I have to have much more definition in mind, so we're going to go in with shading and all those type of things. But remember, I told you earlier that the cross hatching, it does indicate where you would put your darker shadow color. In this particular case, I'm going to be using Prussian blue. That's I like it. Prussian blue is actually one of my favorite blue colors. I think it's really saturated. Not as light fast as some other blues. Definitely not as light fast as ultramarine, but a really beautiful, deep, saturated color. And I find that I like it much more than most other blues. Now the stem I used sap green. The sap green is and this set is a mixture. It's three colors. I think it's PG7, PY154, and PR101. Those are the three pigments that make up the sap green in this set. For what it's worth, it's a really pretty color. I did not find it to get mud when I was mixing it with some other things during the mixing test, which you guys will get to see come up in the review when I do release that video. But for the most part, pretty transparent and pretty colors. They really remind me a lot of like, say, a more saturated version of the Phoenix or the Winsor and Newton Cotman, which we all know that Winsor and Newton's formula has definitely been shared, and Phoenix no doubt uses that formula. I'm not saying that that's what these are. Of course, this is just the first painting that I've done with these paints, so I wouldn't dare try to offer that type of opinion. But, you know, right off the bat, I have to say that the feel they gave me was like I was painting with my Phoenix Artist watercolor or my Winsor & Newton Cotman, which, you know, I'll get to that more in the review after I've had a chance to test the paints more. So here you'll see I'm going in and I'm actually adding an additional layer of that sky blue. And after I get the petals saturated, I go into the darker hatched areas, and that's where I'm dropping in that Prussian blue. I'm not sure if I told you guys, but that one is PB27. So a lot of single pigment colors in this set. Of course, mine was a 12 tube set that I added additional colors to, which made up an 18 color set palette. But I'd have to say that the colors that are in that 12 count seem to be pretty well rounded. I am gonna do a couple of more paintings with these, a couple of mixed media paintings as well, just to get a little bit more experience. But I have to say that just with this simple ink and wash, I was liking the paints. At least I think I am. I think I am. I think I do. So we're just getting to putting on the second layer of the last petal here. And then I'm going to go in again and drop Prussian blue in. Now, the reason I wet that petal again is because I want that Prussian blue to diffuse and sort of give me a secondary shadow once it dries. And the reason I did that is because I'm going to go back in with a dark blue water-based fine line pen in order to cover the black hatching with blue hatching, and it's going to mix in to that Prussian blue and make a really, really beautiful color. Now on the stem and the area where the bud area, where the bud opens and the petals come out, I just used a more saturated version of the sap green, less water, more paint, to just add in these shadow areas, darken it in. I didn't really use too many colors in the stem. I think it was, you know, pretty straightforward and it worked well. Now here I'm splattering that sky blue. I'm gonna scatter some Prussian blue all over the paper. And in the very bottom, I'm gonna splatter sap green. And that kind of concluded the painting portion. So here's where I grabbed that dark blue fine liner. It's almost like a Prussian blue color. Now these don't have any names. This is a Master's Touch, a water-based fine line marker. I didn't want to use an alcohol base on top of it. I figured this would work really, really well, and it did. It gave me just the amount of depth and saturation I needed in those shadow areas. And of course, because it's a fine liner, I was still able to maintain my really, really, really fine details. So I did not lose the realism that I had added to the flower. So yeah, guys, that's going to wrap it up. It's pretty straightforward and simple. Not a lot to it when you're doing an ink and wash, but it was a great way for me to get a preliminary look at the paints and how they perform and layer and mix and all of that good jazz. I'm gonna grab a jelly roll and we're gonna do some highlighting, and that's gonna bring us to the end. If you saw anything that you liked, tips, tricks, techniques, don't forget to give a video a thumbs up. Remember, it's gonna help the channel grow. Share the video. Sharing is caring, and someone else may love to see this video and the information in it. Follow us on all the social media sites, and don't forget you can join the Thrifty Apprentice sponsored Facebook group, Paints, Pencils, Pastels, and Markers. And remember, as I always tell you, just keep painting and crafting.